Hi, I'm Melissa Walsh. I'm a seventh grade ELA teacher at the Franciscan School, and I am also a new literacies and global learning grad student at NC State. And today I'm going to be giving you a brief introduction to one of my favorite Google add-ons, Pear Deck, and to show you how teachers across elementary and middle grades might use this tool. So what is Pear Deck? As I mentioned, Pear Deck is an add-on that can be used with Google Slides or with Microsoft PowerPoint, but for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to talk about Google integration. It's used to increase engagement through interactive slide presentations in which students follow prompts on their individual devices, and they can be displayed in different formats on the educator screen. Pear Deck is simple to use as it contains templates that can be adapted to many different subjects or grade levels, as I'm going to show you today. And there are two versions of Pear Deck. There's the basic and then there's the premium. Obviously, the premium is paid for. And with both versions, you can use the synchronous all class instruction that I'm going to talk about today. But if you'd like to use the independent or asynchronous slides, you do need the premium paid version, but it's a very useful feature. You do get 30 free days of Pear Deck Premium. So I encourage you to download it and experiment to see if it's a resource that would be worth investing in for you or your team or your school or your district. Why use Pear Deck? It is particularly helpful when conducting formative assessments to check for student understanding throughout your lesson and throughout topics or units. It can give you real-time feedback to help you adapt and reteach where you see fit. It helps to increase engagement and encourages active learning with students, and most certainly makes lessons more fun. It allows for anonymous sharing so that students who are less comfortable speaking in class can still present their ideas to you as a teacher and anonymously to their peers, including questions that help to increase social emotional learning skills. Pear Deck also encourages metacognition and critical thinking, and it allows plenty of opportunities for students to think about the way they learn, what they learn, and how they can communicate their ideas and information. So getting started on Pear Deck as a teacher is pretty simple. And again, I'm going to walk through this process as if you are integrating Pear Deck with Google, as we do in my school. So your first step is going to visit the Pear Deck website, www.peardeck.com. And in the upper right corner, you'll see an option to sign up. You'll click that and a box will pop open that looks like the one pictured here. And you will want to sign in with Google. Step 2 is to create a lesson. The homepage has a button for this in the yellow box right here. A slide with instructions on installing the Pear Deck add-on will pop up. After you have the add-on, you can also choose to apply Pear Deck to pre-existing slide presentations that you've already made. If you're new to Pear Deck, the homepage also has resources for teachers who may want to use it as a remote learning resource. And it also has pop-up activities as well as vocabulary activities that are fun to practice with if you're just trying to get used to using the tool. If you click on the Create a Lesson button, it will open a new Google Slides presentation. You're going to want to install the add-on to your Google account by clicking Add-ons, which is in the menu. At the bottom, click Get Add-ons, and then search for Pear Deck. An image that looks like the one on this slide should be the first one that pops up, but it won't have the installed button in the upper right corner. And you'll want to select that one. It's pretty easy to identify because it's got the cute little green pear on it. It says Pear Deck for Google Slides. Once Pear Deck is added, you can integrate it with pre-existing slides or create a new lesson, as I mentioned earlier. You'll do this by clicking your add-on button again, and then selecting the option that says Pear Deck for Google Slides add-on. Once you do this, the Pear Deck sidebar will appear on the right side of your screen, and it should look just like the image shown here. You can then either use a template from the templates library or write your own questions by clicking on the icons listing the categories such as text, choice, number, website, draw, or draggable. I will give you a heads up that draw and draggable slides are only available through Premium, but I'm going to show you how they work so that you can decide whether or not there's something you'd use in your classroom. No matter which option you choose, whether it's working from a template or creating your own slides, A screen will pop up asking if you'd like to design a student-paced activity or an instructor-paced activity. The student-paced activities are behind the paywall, but again, I find them very useful, and they were particularly helpful during remote learning. However, today we're going to explore what an instructor-paced activity looks like. For getting students started, they'll start by logging in from their own device. This can be done from a Chromebook, iPad, phone, or pretty much any device that has access to a web browser. They'll type in www.joinpd.com in their web browser, and the screen will prompt them to enter a code. Step 2 is to enter the teacher-generated code. The student will get the code from the teacher's screen, which has letters, but it'll also give you a mnemonic to help them type it in. For this one, Pear Deck generated FKNYHP, fragrant kangaroos neatly yield hilarious pears. For each lesson that you teach, it will generate a unique code and start a new session. Pear Deck gives the teacher the opportunity to save each session and go back and revisit the student answers so that you can use the same presentation with multiple classes. As students enter the presentation, they only need to follow the instructions on the bottom left-hand corner on the screen and also listen for educator prompts and instructions. The directions will vary from answering multiple choice questions, drawing on slides, typing on slides, or often give students options to answer the prompts in whatever way they think will best express their answers. To show you Pear Deck in action, I'm going to sample some slides on giraffe problems, which is written by Jory John and illustrated by Lane Smith. My K-8 school is using this book for one book, one school. So there are examples for lower elementary, upper elementary, and middle school included. The story is about a giraffe named Edward who feels self-conscious about his neck, and a turtle he meets who overhears him and talks about how the turtle has been admiring Edward's neck from afar for all of the things that he can reach, including these bananas that the turtle has been watching ripen in the trees. We'll flip back and forth between the teacher view and the student view so that you can see what it looks like from both sides. This feature, I feel, can be used with any grade level. It's a draggable slide that taps into those social emotional learning skills. It's a stress check. It asks students to do a self-assessment of how they're feeling. As an educator, it can help you to know where your students are going into a lesson and how that might affect their answers. Our next slide is a drawing slide. You can fill in the title as I have here, or it can be left blank for students to fill in choice reading. This allows them to practice their drawing skills and also can show you what stood out to them about the text. If I click show responses, I can see how my students have responded to this. This is 1, and this is 2. I can choose to share these, or I can leave them until after the lesson. This slide shows you an example with a little more choice for expression. Students can draw the characters and label them, or just list the characters by typing or writing on the slide. As you can see, one student chose to type them, giraffe, turtle. The other student chose to say turtle and giraffe. Another example of drawing slides that can also give some helpful social emotional language vocabulary is how does the story make you feel? Students can choose an emotion for how it makes them feel, or they can draw a new one. You can also edit the question to indicate the beginning, middle, or even a specific chapter of the book. You can use this throughout the lesson to see how their emotions might change as well. And again, here are my responses. One student said happy, and my second student indicated happy as well. This slide provides a great example for a discussion starter. Students will see the responses appear on the teacher's screen as they come in, and the teacher will be able to see who answered in what way. You can then call on students to share their thoughts about the book. So as you can see, both students said that they would recommend this book to a friend. I included this slide just to demonstrate another use for Pear Deck. The words him, her, and look are all used in this book, but you can do an entire presentation for a spelling activity choice for book vocabulary, sight word practice, or just regular spelling list words for the littles. You can change the words, images, and spaces to practice sounds or words that you may be using in your classroom that day or week. Now we're moving into more of the upper elementary or middle grade slides. I changed this slide to be a multiple choice slide offering two options, A, giraffe, or B, turtle. Again, I would use this as a discussion starting point and call on students to share their whys in a large class setting, or possibly as a think, pair, share question. But it's fun for the students to see the poll answers in real time, and you can add as many options as you wish. You can also leave this as a writing or typing slide if you want to use it as a warm-up or a journal question. I really love the answers that I get on the drawing slides. I always encourage my students to have fun with it, and I assure them that the activity is just for fun. They're not being graded on their artistic abilities. If I'm using this within the framework of a lesson that I want to take just one class period, I might even change the directions and challenge them to draw the setting in 1 minute or 2 minutes so that it can take that pressure off my perfectionists a little bit. I'll take volunteers for me to pull up their drawings and to share with the class. But as the teacher, I need to choose to share their responses. So students who are more self-conscious don't have their artwork displayed for all to see. And as you can see, one student chose to draw some banana trees. My second student had a big banana tree, a sun, and some waterfall. This is another example of a poll quiz that pushes students to think about the why of their answer and provides great opportunity for a large group, small group, or partner sharing. For the Giraffe Problems book, we aren't explicitly told the setting, only that Edward and the turtle live together, that there are banana trees and a lot of other animals. So students have to use context clues to answer this question. As you can see, both students indicated that they would not like to live in this story setting. So I might ask, why wouldn't you want to live there? Where does Edward live? What challenges might the setting present to characters who live there? This slide is a simple question that asks students to identify the theme of the story. You could put this slide in twice at the beginning of the lesson and at the end of the lesson to see if the group analysis changes the students' individual answers. The next few slides are examples that you probably could use in upper elementary, but they're definitely appropriate in the middle school level. This slide provides an opportunity for good critical thinking practice, and it may take some verbal prompting to get students to really dig in and make interdisciplinary connections, as well as real-world connections. Does something from the book relate to something that they learned in another class? Was something interesting or surprising? Will it be useful to them? Can it connect to other books that we read for One Book, One School? Helping students make those connections will help them to retain the information because it becomes more relevant to their lives. So as you can see, I'm watching my student respond in real time. What connections can you make between the book and your own life? That I would not like to live in the jungle. What connections could you make between the book and the world we live in? That everyone is different and has different abilities and talents. This slide shows an example that I encourage my students to type their responses on for the sake of time, because it asks a lot of them. And again, I typically use Pear Deck in large group instruction. As a teacher, I can watch their responses as they come in and see if I need to give them a minute or two more to get in their responses. I can also pull up student answers and engage in conversation with the students who have finished, while the other students who may be taking more time finish up their own work. This one combines a lot of the slides that I used for the lower and upper elementary students, and it asks for the students to identify setting, main characters, problem, main events, and the resolution. Again, they may need more specific verbal instructions, but I could also edit the slide to give them more explicit written instructions, such as bullet points are acceptable, write one complete sentence, share one idea per box, etc. So as I can see, my student said, the setting is the jungle, the main characters are giraffe and turtle. My problem is that the giraffe is embarrassed about his neck. The main events, turtle makes giraffe feel better, and the resolution, giraffe is more comfortable in his skin. This slide shows a great example of how to encourage metacognitive thinking in your lessons by challenging students to think about what they liked, didn't like, found easy, and found challenging about your lesson. This helps them to think about their learning, but it can also give you valuable feedback as an educator to help you to adapt your lessons in the future to meet student needs. So this student said that they liked the artwork and they found relating to the characters was easy. Fortunately, this student identified that they found nothing challenging about the lesson. However, they didn't like the turtle. In giraffe problems, Edward becomes less self-conscious about his neck by putting fun bow ties all over it. So this slide could be used as a fun way to end the lesson. I'll have access to these slides after the live lesson concludes, so I could even print them out and use them for a bulletin board. This one obviously can be used for any grade level, but as a middle school teacher, I can attest that my big kids really love having a silly slide to be creative. I hope you learned a bit about how I use Pear Deck in my classroom and that you're inspired to give it a shot in your own. I find it has increased engagement, inspired really powerful discussion, and gotten even my most quiet students to share insight in my classroom.